wash away the darkest tune. Lift me till I circle around the sun. I'll be singing, dancing all night long. I'll be singing, dancing all night long. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Thank you, Melissa. I love that. That's wonderful. Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to see you. It's nice to be back on Sunday morning, having an opportunity to explore and learn and grow and share and have some fun. Obviously, we like to have fun here at Unity in the heart of Austin. We like to laugh. And a couple of weeks ago, last week, I shared that I kind of went through a dip in my awareness and my focus, I guess you might say, and I was feeling really out of sorts. I was in my little pity pot for a while and having a little pity party, you know, and if it had gone much further, I'm sure I would have thrown a tantrum. But I had a real awakening, I guess, at one point when I recognized that what was simply going on was that I was focusing on ways that I felt lack in some way, or that something was missing, or that I was really focusing on what I thought was supposed to be there that wasn't there. And in the very act of doing that, I realized that I was taking myself down the rabbit hole. You guys know the rabbit hole? I was going down this little rabbit hole where I was really getting in what I consider a dark place. And immediately, though, when I began to recognize what I was doing and I began to pivot, as they say in the Abraham Hicks work, you pivot your awareness and you pivot and you begin thinking about and focusing on blessings. The word blessing came to me, and to be blessed. And what does that mean to be blessed? And I began to look at, it certainly involves gratitude naturally, but it's even more than just simply saying thank you because of something that you have received. It really is an activity of heart and mind and spirit that is really spoken of through Scripture, and actually I would say it's spoken of through all Scriptures in some way. Ultimately, what we are really trying to do in terms of our spiritual unfoldment and growth is to experience the energy, the consciousness, the vibration of blessing. And it's something that we both participate in, and it's something that we also are participants and receivers of. Came across a story about a poor widow lady with 5 kids who every day came out on her front porch, and she raised her hands up to heaven and she prayed out loud, "Lord, you know I have no food in my cabinets to feed my children today. Please provide our daily needs." And the next door neighbor was an atheist, got tired of hearing this, didn't want to hear this every day, and so didn't want to hear all this spiritual stuff, you know. And so one day he thought he would teach her a lesson. So she came out one day and did her prayer and said, "Dear Lord, you know I have no food in the cabinets, and please feed my children and with our needs and provide our needs today." And so he went and bought a whole bunch of groceries and took them and put them in bags on her front doorstep, and then he went and hid behind the bushes to see what would happen. And she came out and she was just thanking God. "Oh, praise God, thank you for blessing us in so many ways. Thank you for giving us what we need." And he comes out and he says, "Now see there, this wasn't God doing this. I did that. I went and bought those groceries and gave them to him. This is ridiculous. You're out here praising God for something that I did." And she said, "Oh, thank you, God. Thank you, God. Not only did you provide for my needs, but you had the devil pay for it." I love that story. Well, the thing that it reminds me of is to recognize and understand that our blessings come in many, many ways and many forms, and we have to be open and receptive to seeing those before we really recognize them as the blessings that they are. You don't experience a blessing until you are in a place where you're willing to acknowledge it as a blessing, if you really think about it. And it's the very act of acknowledging something as a blessing that begins to transform it into that experience of being a blessing in our lives. We've all had experiences that we thought were not blessings. In fact, we probably, anybody had ever had the feeling like there was a curse going on? Sometimes we get in these patterns where we think like we're feeling cursed in some way. But the reality is that even in those experiences, if we are open to the consciousness of letting it be something good in our lives, to declare it as good in our lives, you will find that out of that experience, maybe not in the experience, but out of that experience, something will unfold that you will see and begin to experience as a blessing in some way. So when I was thinking about this idea of blessing, it came to me that one of the most valuable scriptures that we have about this idea of blessing comes from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. And he taught a series of blessings. And this series of blessings have been referred to as the Beatitudes. And the word beatitude basically means to confer abundance upon, to confer good upon, to basically claim and call something good. And so a beatitude is an attitude of our thoughts, of our awareness, of our thinking, our way of looking and a way of seeing. It has to do with our perception. And as we begin to tune our perception into that awareness of good, what happens is that our frequency, our vibration, you might say, our consciousness resonates with the good that's already available to us, and it begins to draw and attract that more into our experiences in our lives. One of the great resources that I was reminded of when I was reflecting on this is this wonderful book called The Sermon on the Mount by Emmett Fox. And I asked last week, how many of you have actually read this book? We've got a few of you. This is a classic work, and if you are interested in any way about the spiritual teachings of Jesus and on the Sermon on the Mount, this is one of the most valuable resources that you'll come across, and it's still very available. In fact, I think I picked this one up. I don't remember when, but I've had it, as you can see, a week or two. But actually, I was able to download it, I think, on Kindle for only like $3, which is, wow, that's a treasure. So I highly recommend that you take some time to reflect on this and study. And we're going to talk a little bit about this idea of the Beatitudes. We talked a little bit last week about a few of the Beatitudes, and one of the ones that really speaks in a way that we don't oftentimes understand is this idea of blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And I talked about this briefly last week, and it's an understanding that the idea of inheriting the earth really has to do with taking an awareness and a dominion over whatever is coming into our outer experiences in the world. So the earth represents not just the physical earth that we're talking about, although it represents that as well. It has to do with whatever is coming into our experience in the outer world. And so part of our work is to practice an understanding of knowing that we are in the process of, and we are participating in, creating whatever is going on out here in our world. And one of the ways that we are able to really connect with that energy and that creative process that's going on in and through us, through our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, through our awareness, through our way of looking and seeing things, having an attitude of meekness does not imply weakness. It actually means simply to be allowing. It simply means to allow that spirit of the divine to work through us in such a way that we are consciously bringing into our experience those things that are a blessing. So when he says, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth, he's really metaphysically talking about this attitude of mind of simply allowing the blessings of Spirit. See, interestingly enough, and actually I want to read this little piece from Emmett Fox on the Sermon on the Mount. He says, the true significance of the word meek in the Bible is a mental attitude for which there is no other single word available. It is the mental attitude which is the secret of prosperity or success in prayer. It is a combination of open-mindedness, faith in God, and the realization that the will of God for us is always joyous and interesting and vital, and much better than anything that we could think of for ourselves. And that's a lot to be said in a single little word of meek. It really means being in that place of absolute knowing and faith and trusting that there's something higher at work in our experiences that is in every way trying to bless us. And it's in that place of allowing that blessing to come through our energy and our state of mind. He says this state of mind also includes a perfect willingness to allow this will of God to come about in whatever way divine wisdom considers to be the best, rather than in some particular way that we have chosen for ourselves. And so it really is having an awareness that there's, whenever we talk about blessing and working with these energies and these principles, we do teach that you want to set an intention for what it is that you desire to experience in terms of a blessing, because it helps you to recognize it when it shows up. But the other piece of that is when you do set an intention, it's important to not get attached to that intention, but to be open to how the universe will fill the underlying blessing that you're desiring with that intention. Follow what I'm saying? And so one of the best ways to kind of understand this is I shared this story before, but it just seems to really fit with this. I was working and doing some counseling with a young man some years ago, and this young man was having some challenges in his life, and he came to me and we were doing some counseling, and apparently he was obsessed about this idea of getting a freezer. Every time we came in, he was talking about he was really driven to get this freezer. And I'm kind of curious about this, and it seemed to be, he was very obsessed with this idea that was going to be the solution to his problems. That if he had this freezer, then everything would be okay. And so we did a little exploration with that, and I said, well, tell me about this. Or what does it mean to you to have, what would this freezer, what would you do for you? Why do you feel like you need a freezer? And he said, well, if I had a freezer, see that I could actually have meals prepared up ahead of time and put them in the freezer, and then when I get home, I can just put something in the oven or the microwave and have meals quick and easy, and that sort of thing. I said, well, that sounds practical. It sounds like a great idea, but why do you feel you have to have a freezer in order to do that? And he says, well, why do you need your meals? I said, why do you need your meals prepared this way? Why do you need to have them? He says, well, that would give me a lot more time. And I'm going, oh, so what you really want is more time. He says, yeah. I said, oh, okay, so you want a freezer so you have more time. Okay, well, I could kind of see that, and in some ways, but why do you feel like you need more time? He says, well, I need more time because I want to spend more time with my wife and my children, and I want to be able to have more time with them. I thought, well, that's a wonderful thing. I said, I think that's a great. So why do you want to spend more time with it's a noble thing, but why? Why do you feel like you need to have more time with them? He says, well, I want them to love me more. Oh, so what you really want is to experience more love. Then why do you need the freezer? In his mind, he equated having a freezer with being able to have more love. And so when we really look at what the blessing underneath is and what it is that we're really desiring, we set an intention for something, but if we get attached to that intention, we oftentimes block the very blessing that we're trying to experience in that if we don't allow the universe to provide in such a way that we can see and experience the blessing. Does that make sense? Do you follow me? So what are the freezers that you have going in your life? What are the freezers? What are the things that you think you have to have in order to experience the blessings of Spirit? Because I can assure you that there's some way that you can have that, or you can have whatever will bring that blessing into your life and into your experience. So let's move on to some of the other Beatitudes. He says, blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Righteousness. It's another of the great key words of the Bible, one of those keys that the reader must have in his or her possession if he is to get a real true meaning of what is trying to be shared here. Along with meat and comfort, it's a technical term used in a special and definite sense. So righteousness actually means in the Bible not merely right conduct, but right thinking on all subjects in every department of life. So let me say that again. Righteousness means in the Bible not merely right conduct, but right thinking on all subjects in every department of life. And as we study the Sermon on the Mount, we shall find every clause in it reiterating the great truth that outside things are but the expression or expressed or pressed out of outpicturing of an inner thought and belief system. That we have dominion or power over our thoughts to think as we will, and thus indirectly we make or mar our lives by the way in which we think. And Jesus was constantly teaching us this principle. So righteousness really has to do with an alignment of our thoughts and our thinking with that which is higher, which is more in tune with a more universal awareness or understanding of not only our lives and our world, but who and what we truly are. See, the more we can align ourselves with the truth of our divine nature, with that divine Spirit of God that is within each and every one of us, when we can align ourselves with the Christ heart and mind that is in each and every one of us, we are moving back into, the word that always comes to me when I think of righteousness really is alignment. It really is lining up and being in harmony with and being in the same frequency, you might say, as that which is always at the heart of trying to bless and pour a blessing not only to us, but in and through us. So, one of the things that this sets up, sometimes I'm going to confess to you, I don't feel real righteous. I don't feel like I'm really lined up. And I know that we all experience that. Sometimes I don't feel like I'm lined up with my higher nature. Sometimes I find myself getting caught up and hooked into things that really kind of pull me aside and pull me in a way that really is a limiting thought and idea and belief system, not only about myself, but about the world. It's not too hard to turn on the news and get pulled into and sucked into things that are not really necessarily reflecting this understanding of who and what we are and the connection that we have and the oneness that is our true nature. And so when we find ourselves getting sucked into all of the outer things out here that seem like are giving a message that we are separate from each other, or separate from our source, or separate from the blessings and the good that are available to us, that is unrighteousness. Isn't that a great, sometimes I have to say I have trouble with that word because of some of my background, because that almost kind of paints a picture that somehow that you and I are less than or unworthy in some way. But I'm going to suggest to you that is an unrighteous thought. So think about what I'm just saying here. The very act of seeing ourselves and somehow as being less than or unworthy in and of itself is not in alignment with the truth of our nature. You and I are created in the image and after the likeness divine. We are created as divine creative beings, and we are created in the very essence of who and what we are. We're created of the essence of what the divine is, and the divine, as Jesus said, God is love. And they that abide in love abide in God. So when we are aligning ourselves, that energy, that consciousness, that heart-centeredness of our true nature, of spirit, then we are in connection with that creative power in such a way that we not only experience the blessings in life, but we are reflections and expressions of that blessing to each other and out into our world. So one of the things that I really like about this, and Emmett Fox talks about this understanding that Jesus said, "Blessed are they who hunger and thirst after righteousness." I think this is an important understanding because it's really very easy to get tripped up with thinking that Jesus said, blessed are only those who are righteous, and righteous all the time. He didn't say that, did he? It's pretty clear. He said, blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness. And so what he was really implying and saying is that whether you are in that place of being fully aligned or not, you are blessed if you are in the process of turning your thoughts, your energy, your awareness, your attention to really moving back into that place of alignment. As Courtney said this morning, I love to say, and it really is a wonderful teaching for me, and I think for all of us, never centered, always returning to center. You and I are blessed by the very act and the very process of returning our thoughts, our feeling, our emotion, our awareness, our identification with that which is the essence of our true nature, which is love, which is spirit, which is truth. And the more we practice that awareness, the more we move into it, when we hunger and thirst after that awareness of being in a place of alignment with the divine, seeing ourselves in that, and as Emmett Fox actually says, claiming that. And to claim it really means to take ownership of it, to really identify it as already being something that is real and exists. And so the more we can identify ourselves with that wonderful connection that we have and recognize the truth of our own nature and also recognize the truth of the nature of those in our lives and world, not only are we a blessing to them, but we are blessed by the very act of realigning ourselves back into that place. Yeah. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness. I was thinking about this beatitude, and I was reminded of a wonderful story that I came across a while back, and many years ago, and it really spoke to me on a deep level. And there was a young disciple that came to a master and said, I want to come and I want to study and I want to really learn about God from you. I want to learn about God, and I want to know, I've been studying all these different Bible scriptures and Hindu scriptures and everything. I want to learn about God. And the master took him down to the river and said, come with me. And he said, come down the river, and took him and stuck him under the water, held his head under the water. And the young man was there for a while and just and then began to really struggle. And the man held him under, the master held him under and really struggled. And for a while, he let him go, and the man just went, popped up and took a big, huge breath. And the master said, why did you do that? And he says, the master said, when you want to experience God as much as you wanted that breath, you'll know God. Wow. That's a powerful, powerful awareness. It's a powerful awareness that when we really want to experience the presence of the divine is always available to us. Interestingly enough, we are in a place where we can open ourselves up to that in such a way that we experience the blessings and take that breath even in the middle of those times when we are challenged, when we truly turn our focus and our attention to wanting to experience the divine. Kind of leads us into our next one. Let's move into this. The principle that we're working with is an understanding that ultimately everything that we want to see and experience in our lives is coming from our one source. It's coming from the true source. It's coming from that place where we are experiencing our connection and our oneness with God. The next beatitude is, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed in the heart, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. This is one of those wonderful, he calls it a gnomic saying, in which the Bible is so rich. It is nothing less than a summing up in a few words of the whole philosophy of religion. As usual, in the Scriptures, the words are used in a technical sense and cover a far wider meaning than we attach to them in everyday life. He says, let us begin by considering what the promise is in this beatitude. It is nothing less than to see God. Now we know, of course, that God has no corporal form, and therefore there is no question of seeing him in the ordinary physical sense in which one might see a human being, therefore not God. To see in the sense referred to here signifies spiritual perception. And spiritual perception means just that capacity to apprehend the true nature of being, which we all sadly lack. He's talking about not only he's talking about an attitude or a condition of our consciousness in which we are able to recognize the presence of the divine in whatever we are perceiving. That's a powerful thing, but it's also a challenging thing, isn't it? When we look out on the world and we see all kinds of things that for us do not appear to be God, a big piece of our work is to look for and find that presence, even in those places where we experience fear, doubt, separation. Because in the very act of doing so, we shift our energy, we shift our consciousness, we tune our perceptions in such a way that we are actually able to clarify, and we will find that there's something in that very act of making that shift that allows us to see the possibilities of a greater good. And as we allow ourselves to see the possibility of a greater good, we are participating in drawing more of that good into our lives and our experience. Last night we had a wonderful gathering to watch a great documentary, and I highly recommend it. If you didn't get to make it last night, I think you can find this documentary probably on Netflix, I believe. And it's called Kindness is Contagious. And, you know, I'm convinced that, you know, people in Unity kind of know that. That's part of what we are kind of have woken up to. This understanding that there is a power in the very act of our goodness and the good, not only things that we do, but the thoughts that we hold. And so in this wonderful work of Kindness is Contagious, there's a recognition that the very act of doing something for another person, one of the things they did some wonderful research on the very act of someone being kind to another person. Not only did it open them up to experience more kindness in their lives, but one of the things it did is it had a ripple effect. And one of the phrases that they used, I'm trying to recall the phrase, but it was like a reverse Ponzi scheme. That's what I called it anyway. They had a different term for it. What was it? Do you remember? It was like a reverse Ponzi scheme. Instead of all the blessings coming back up to the one that everything coming back up, it actually just spread significantly. And so the good went from this one person, and then three people. They would bless three people, and then they would bless three people. How many of you saw that movie, Pay It Forward? So the person who this was primarily their research and their work that they worked on was in this documentary. And the idea was you take and you go and do a kindness for three people, and then as a part of that you ask those three people to pass it on, to do that for three people. And what they found was, it's exponential, and it really has a significant impact on people's lives. And it has a significant impact on what's happening in the world to thousands and even millions of people. And it starts with, just being nice to some people. in some way. Well, even the very act of our thoughts in that way can be have ripple effects in our lives. And so when we think about this idea of blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God, I don't know where I got this awareness, and I don't know whether it is something that I read or something that came to me in meditation. I can't remember at this point, but one of the things that came to me some time ago is that blessed are the pure in heart, and I used to think that you had to be pure in heart in order to see God. And I do think there's something to that understanding, and Emmett Fox talks about this understanding. He really defines this idea of pure in heart as one who basically sees the truth, who looks beyond the appearances and really looks to and sees the truth in that circumstance or situation. And I think that's a great understanding of it. But one of the things that occurred to me some time ago is, blessed are they who are pure in heart, for they, and I was looking at the scripture and I recognized that the word shall has been kind of inserted into this phrase. So we've often read it as, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. But I'm going to suggest to you the original version wasn't that. It's blessed are the pure in heart, for they see God. So let me say that again. There's a subtle but important difference. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they see God. And it occurred to me that what helps someone to be pure in heart is the very act of seeing God, and not the other way, necessarily the other way around. That when we look out in the world and we see that everything in this world is an expression of the divine, it actually aligns our heart with this knowing and this understanding in such a way that we're pretty righteous at that point. We're in alignment with the truth. Because there really is only one presence and one power in the universe, in this place and in our lives, and that presence and power is God the good. And so part of our unfolding and experiencing the blessings of the divine is the very practice of looking for and seeing that divine in all aspects of life. And the more we do that, the more we resonate with that energy. And the more we resonate with that energy, the more we attract to us other awarenesses and other experiences that enhance and bring into our lives even greater blessings. I shared last night with a group that something in this reminded me of this. I had one of the kindest and nicest thing that someone ever did for me was sent me and paid for me to go to Russia and to take a trip to Russia. And I went with a group of Unity ministers and Unity teachers and just Unity lay people. And our purpose and our intention was there to just go and share some of these Unity teachings and some of these principles. And it came in just a wonderful way. A wonderful man who, I wouldn't consider him a financially wealthy person, but came into some resources and was praying about what he wanted to do with that, and heard about this trip and decided that he didn't want to go himself, but he said, I want you to go. And so he paid for my trip to Russia. And one of the things I recall in that trip going to Russia is that our whole purpose and intention was to bless each and every person and everyone that we had any contact with. And so we were reminded of a wonderful song by Charlie Thweet, who came here and sang for us at one point. And the song goes like this. Peace I find on every corner, every bus stop, every home I visit in. Ooh, 'cause I look for it. That's the key right there, 'cause I look for it. How often and how much of our time and our day do we spend looking to see and know the presence of God? I can assure you, if you will take some time just to make that a spiritual practice for yourself, the blessings will absolutely pour down from heaven, just like the rain has been lately. Showers of blessings outpour. You know that old wonderful hymn, Showers of Blessings. You and I are in a place, we are in a universe, we are in that milieu of blessing, and our work is to open our consciousness and our awareness to it. And the very act of looking for that presence of the divine is one of the things that opens up the windows of heaven so that we can see and experience more of those in every part of our lives. So that's kind of been my lessons for the week, and I'm going to I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share those, and I want you to know that I really do honor and see and bless the divine within each and every one of you. God bless you. Let's move into our meditation time. Let's just breathe into that awareness of that divine love in which we now live and move and have our being. We are open and receptive to that consciousness, that energy, that awareness of the presence of love, and are willing to release any thoughts or feelings or attitudes or beliefs that do not align with that knowing of our true nature, of our oneness, not only with our source, but our oneness with each other, I am now one with all one heart and mind. I am now one with the one who is and has and does create in and through me. I accept the blessings of that connection, of that oneness, here and now, in this moment. I release and turn over any thoughts that appear to block or hinder that knowing, that awareness, that unfolding, that expression. In the silence, in the silence. And in that assurance and that knowing of divine love, I recognize that as the Course in Miracles says, nothing real can be threatened, and nothing unreal exists. Therein lies the peace of God. I let my heart, my mind, my whole being, my way of looking and seeing and thinking be an instrument of blessing in my world. I look for and see the presence of the divine, of love. And know that in the very act of doing so, I am blessed. Take a nice deep breath now. As you breathe into that heart space, fill it with that knowing of that love that God is. Take another nice deep breath. And as you release it, release anything that seems other, because it's just an illusion. And take one more nice deep breath. Let your awareness be present in this room, this time, this place, and give thanks. And so it is. Amen.